Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. This is Sonic Explorer here. Um, Doing another vlog episode. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Um, what I got here is I have my Logic session pulled up with the drum recordings I did the last 2 weekends with my band CLE Trio. I know I showed a little bit from the previous video how the session was set up and how like the drum room was recording, but I have pretty much the finished mixing session for the drums. And without giving too much away with the song, I'll just kind of give you guys a little bit of like, my channel strip settings and just how the drums are mixed. So I'm going to turn the camera towards the screen here in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of go through some big things with these recordings. The drums turned out really well. I know I had mentioned in the previous video we end up using the SM7B on the kick drum, and that really actually brought out more of that clickiness and punch to the kick drum that I wanted, that you won't really see with like a AKG like D112, which is what I had in front of the kick drum. I know there's the other kick drum, like the Shure one, uh, that they make that's meant for like low end and kick drums. I haven't used that one, but like I yielded good results with the D112. But SM7B, I mean, that really is an all-arounder mic. I know so many people praise it, and it's like the podcasting mic too, for like broadcasting. But it is really great. Can do a lot in terms of like, because I've used it on bass cabs before, and I haven't really used it on guitars, but I've used it on vocals, and it does work really well for that too. So it's a great all-arounder mic. If you are looking for a mic, it's definitely worth the price. I know it's a little expensive. I want to say it's like in the 300 range, but if you get one used, definitely worth the price. Um, but from the last video, I used SM57 on the snare drum, used the Aston Starlights as the overheads. I used those oh man, I can't remember the name, the Sennheisers on the toms, and then another SM57 on the floor tom. Um, and then for room mics, we used the we ended up using the Avatone CV12 as like our condenser room microphone behind the sound blanket, and then we ended up also using a ribbon microphone. We used the Royer R121, which is a fantastic room mic. Um, but let's get into it. I'll show you how the drums sound. I'm going to turn the camera over. So if I turn it around here, then you get a good view of the session here. So I'm going to just play here. So this is the dry sound of the drums without any processing. So just to hear how it sounds. And at the bottom here, I know this was muted, the room mic, and I'll show you for a second, like kind of like my production tip on that. But I have some volume automation here, or mute automation on the room mic. So I kind of bring it in and bring it back out during certain parts of the song. So just to kind of bring in more of that room ambiance with the drums during certain parts of the song, and then cut it back out, because it can be a little overbearing with the room mic as a condenser microphone. So let's stop that for a second. I'm going to start putting on some stuff here. So this is what I've got up on the, if you can see it, this is what I got up on the drum bus here, the main drum bus. So I'm going to put the EQ on. I put the decapitator and the radiator. The EQ, this is pretty basic stuff. I mean, I basically just kind of do a sweep for like the sound that's like harsh sounding, and then like boost it really high, like 15 dB, And once I find that like boxy, harsh sound, I cut it. Always cut here just to kind of cut some of the low end, just to get rid of some of that muddiness. But not a ton of processing with, like EQ wise. I put radiator on here, the Sound Toys radiator. I basically just crank the input. I put it on the clean setting here, cut the output down, boost the treble and the bass a little bit, and have it all the way wet. So let me play the drums with some of this processing. I'll get back to the RC20, the retro color. I know this is a pretty popular plugin for like lo-fi stuff, but I don't want to leave it off just so you can hear it. But we'll come back to that. But this is just with some of on the drum bus processing. Hear that rim mic cut back in here, you know. That's the CB12 actually is what I'm bringing in and out throughout the song, and it will cut back out again here in a second. But that's with it in. I got it mixed pretty low actually. I tend to mix most my tracks at pretty low volumes, and then I turn them up really high too. Cut out without it, and that's without it. So let's start adding. I'll go back to where I was talking about the retro color on the drum bus. So basically, I don't really use this for any sort of saturation per se, or any like you can tell all these are off here at the on the bottom row. But really I use it for the EQ, and you could achieve this with any EQ plugin really. But all I do is I like to take the tone knob and I have it on this setting, and when you turn it counterclockwise it adds I guess more mid or like low end, and then I do like a harsh high end roll off to kind of tame some of the low or the high end on the drum bus. But like here's it, you know, just for context, here's it with it off. And here's with it on, and it kind of tames some of that high end, like in the cymbals and stuff. It's a very minor thing, but you can hear it mostly in the cymbals and like the high end area where it's cutting at. But I may or may not leave that on. To me it just makes the drum sound like a little tamer with the highs. Kind of more like, I guess, a vintage sounding kind of recording on drums. But we'll solo the kick bus here. So that's both the AKG D112 and the SM7B here you're hearing. Here's just the SM7B. I got it mixed pretty low as well, and then mute that, and then here's the D112, and I will start adding some of these plugins in. I just do like heavy compression on the kick drum. I usually like just compress it a lot, and then I usually make cuts and boost around like 5K here. The EQ, same thing, like I comb filter it, find the harsh frequency, then cut it. And then the only real thing that I guess I kind of do different is sometimes I don't use it. I use a transient designer to bring out some more clickiness and cut back on the sustain of the kick is what I'll do, just to kind of bring out more of the qualities of it. But we'll go to the SM7B and put that in too so you can hear it for context, because I got the volume pretty low, but once I turn the plugins in, and it's such a woofy, clicky, like kick sound. And And that's the dry snare there. Sounds really good. But just with the kick, I'll add the plugins. I really just compress, use the decapitator, and more EQ on the snare. Cut off a lot of the extra low end on it. But it already sounds really good just with the kick and snare drum. Or I guess the two kick drum microphones. And I'll add the overheads in here for context. So the overheads just add more life and dimension to the overall kit. But even if I take the snare drum out, it still sounds really good. You just get less body to the snare drum, but the overheads sound really good. And I'll take the kick out just so you can hear just the overheads. And I really just use decapitator and more EQ. Decapitator, I really like the channel E setting. That's pretty much my go-to on every track. I boost the drive, cut like 50 hertz, make it brighter. I guess I like the brighter tone. I know there is a time when you use the darker knob too, which I do use, but I'll use that typically if I have, especially on like the CV12, the Avatone, to cut a lot of that high-end cymbal detail from it because it's really harsh sounding. Yeah, let's just rewind it because we're coming up with the tom fill here and we're on the toms anyway. But the toms, I actually just use the preset on here. I don't do anything fancy. I use the rack tom preset because it sounds so good and it does what it needs to for me, and I don't have to think about it. I basically just it's got a gate on it, so it picks up less of the bleed, as a microphone, and just picks up the toms. But that's what I basically use the same setting on the rack tom and then the floor tom preset because they sound that good. But just for context, I'll turn these on, and then I'll shut this other stuff off just so you can kind of hear it with. And I always pan my toms like hard right and hard left. You can see that. Same with my overheads, hard right, hard left. But we'll go back. Let's do the ribbon mic because this one sounds really good and definitely adds more dimension to it. But here's it without the processing. And once I start adding the compression and the decapitator, the EQ. I'll add all the drums now. So you kind of get a picture of what the whole thing sounds like. Real beefy, chunky sound. It sounds great. Let's go to the room mic, the CV12. So it's gonna, I'll go loop it where it's not muted at, so you can hear it. But like here it is. A lot of high end. So I typically on room mics, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up compressing them heavily, and then I'll actually use the decapitator to go to the dark setting or cut a lot of the high end on it. Like sometimes I didn't do it here actually, but I'll usually do a pretty big high cut to cut some of that cymbal shrill off. I put the thumb switch up too and kind of overdrive them so to get them like real saturated. But Here, I'll add the compression. Turn it up a little bit so you can hear it. And you can hear how roomy that sounds. And this microphone just picks up so much high end and detail. It's almost overwhelming. I mean, it has its place, but sometimes I won't use it at all on drums because it's like once you start compressing those cymbals that heavily, it sounds unnatural to the drums. It just does not sound good. But just for context, I'll put it back in with the rest of the drums. I'll just turn it down here. Oh, I got it mixed. You can hear it. Without. With it. But it's a great sound for drums. Here's without it. But I'll go through more of the track. I just started mixing it yesterday, and I say I've got like 90% of the drums mixed, or at least how I want it to sound. So thanks for tuning in. I'll do another episode soon. I meant to get this up sooner, but wasn't able to. Happy Valentine's Day.